right, we'll call the public safety meeting for February 1st, 2024. I'll rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome. Let's start off with any agenda additions or changes.
Just the removal of the reports under the sheriff's update.
Okay. Rule of
Move
reports.
the amended agenda.
Move support by Commissioner Drosha. All right, if seeing no others, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda is approved. Approval of January 11 minutes.
Move them.
Moved by Commissioner Haskell, support by Commissioner Drosha. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Any limited public comment? Limited public comment. If not seeing none now, we'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting also for limited public comment. Sheriff's Office update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. January highlights, I'll start with that first. On January 5th, our deputies responded to a report of a felonious assault in the 2400 block of East Vermontville Highway. Two males were arguing about a post hole digger. One male had pointed a shotgun at the other. We got there and were able to secure the suspect, who ended up admitting to the felonious assault and was arrested and lodged in our jail. January 7th, deputies responded to the 1100 block of Montevideo in Delta Township for a home invasion. A male drove from Eaton Rapids to break in and confront the homeowner who 50 years ago was involved in a car crash that killed the relatives of the suspect. The suspect still wanted to extract his justice. The homeowner did not want to press home invasion charges, so the suspect was arrested and lodged for disorderly conduct. January 8th, we responded to a man with a gun and shots fired complaint at the 100 block of Arlington in Windsor Trailer Park. The victim was in an argument with a suspect. The suspect assaulted the victim, then pointed a gun at her. The suspect assaulted the victim, then pointed a gun at her. I already said that's repeated twice here. The suspect then fired a shot from the gun near the victim. We were able to talk to the suspect into coming out of the house, arresting him for felonious assault. The suspect was on parole and was charged with several additional crimes. On January 9th, man with a gun call, 400 block of Robbins in Delta Township. The suspect got into an argument with a neighbor. The suspect pulled out a gun and threatened the victim. We arrested the suspect and seized the pistol. The suspect was a convicted felon and was lodged for being a felon in possession of a firearm, felonious assault, and possession of methamphetamines. January 9th, deputies responded to an overdose at Myers and Delta. Male victim was passing out at the Bigby Coffee Shop. The guy he was with administered Narcan and then took him to the Meyer drive-through pharmacy to get help and make sure the Narcan was given correctly. Male was transported to the hospital by EMS. January 13th, deputies dispatched to the 7300 block of South Royston for a check well-being. A son had not been able to contact his father all day and wanted us to check on him after the neighbor had also went over and got no answer at the front door. Deputies did not get an answer at the front door and noticed his vehicles were at the house with no tracks in the snow. Deputies again tried to get the homeowner's attention at the front door and heard a faint voice saying, "Kick it." Deputies forced entry and found the elderly male who was face down on the floor with a broken hip. He had been down for almost 12 hours, and they probably saved his life for being down that long and his age. On January 18th, deputies responded to a retail fraud in progress at the Home Depot. A male entered the store that had previously stolen carts of merchandise from there. This time, he ditched the merchandise in the cart and left in a stolen silver F-350. Our investigation resulted in an ID of the suspect. There were no arrest warrants for this suspect, and he had been known to carry a handgun. Later that night, a deputy working with other law enforcement agencies were able to locate the suspect and arrest him. On January 20th, retail fraud thefts at Menards. A male and female suspect tried to push out a cart of stolen merchandise, and when they were approached by Menards loss prevention staff, staff member, the male suspect, tased him. We were able to get a photo of the suspect, and he went it to our crime analysis, who quickly identified him. We're investigating the case further. On January 21st, we had a stolen car recoveries at the Travel Lodge in Delta. A car theft victim found his stolen car parked here in the parking lot. While deputies were responding there, another stolen car arrived in the parking lot. The driver of the second stolen car fled on foot. Deputies viewed the security video there and were able to identify the suspect. One of our deputies, while off duty and on his way home, saw the suspect in the area. He called it in, and several of our deputies responded and arrested the suspect. Sometimes they do come in our favor when we make good arrests on some of these people. January 22nd, armed robbery at the Lansing Mall. Multiple suspects had arrived in 2 vehicles. They smashed out a display case at the jewelry store in the mall with sledge-type hammers. They were successful at taking multiple pieces of jewelry. We determined these suspects have done this at several stores in Michigan and in other states. We worked with the FBI and other agencies and were able to identify them very quickly. These suspects were located and arrested a few days later by another agency. January 29th, a man with a gun at Waverly High School. We received information from our school resource deputy about a male reported to be at the high school with a gun. We located 3 persons just outside the school and back and detained them. One of them did have a loaded Glock pistol on him. The suspect with a gun never went into the school. The suspect who had the gun was arrested and lodged for carrying a concealed weapon, possession of an unregistered firearm, and violation of a weapons-free zone. It does not sound like the gun was ever displayed or that there was a threat to use it. However, he was still arrested. January 31st, larceny of packages of 200 block Park Meadows Drive. We were dispatched on a report in a vehicle stopping and stealing packages from porches of residents. Deputy Turner located them on St. Joe near Waverly and stopped them. The stolen packages were recovered and then 2 people were arrested and lodged. That's the end of the monthly report. However, this past month, Connie, Ben, and myself had a meeting with Judge Cunningham in regards to court security. The last time a report or a study was done was in 2013 regarding court security, and it's time for a new one. I just don't know what the process is. Does the circuit court judge request this from Scale, or do you, Connie?
The circuit court judge is requesting it.
So we're going to look forward to see what it is, and it's going to, with today's society, people are pretty much capable of doing almost anything. So we want to make sure we follow their recommendations, and it's probably going to require more deputies for her. We already have 1 for the court, but we're probably going to need more. But until that report comes through, and we can take a look at it and make that decision at that time. You have anything to add, Connie?
I think we're good.
We know, Commissioner Haskell, go ahead.
I was curious, for this security review, does that include just the courts, or does it include the grounds as a whole?
As far as the court report that will come from the Supreme Court, that would be just for the courthouse itself. So we had a discussion, obviously we have a youth facility. Probably during the planning of that, we should have fenced in the employee parking area, which we'll look to do. But all of the other buildings, again, would have to be addressed as well. I mean, our public defender is over in the health department. So we'll be looking at it as a whole campus.
Okay, thank you.
What's the time frame on that? Are they looking to do that like ASAP, or?
Well, the request would
Request.
go in
Right.
right away, but I don't know how quick Scale will be at
Okay.
working on that.
We'll look forward to seeing something. Commissioner Mudry.
Sheriff Wright. There's been some discussion about the stolen packages off the porches, porch pirates. A lot of people have these Ring video surveillance things, doorbells. What is the opinion of law enforcement when people take these videos and they post it online to social media? Should that be done, or should they just take the video, contact your office first?
They need to contact us. I have a Ring doorbell video too. I love it. It would be nice if everyone called us immediately, but we can't control what they put on social media stuff. So I don't know if it's going to affect the prosecutor's office. I doubt it. I think people can do pretty much what they want to do. We have no control over that.
I was more or less, is it legal to do that? Or is that out of your domain?
That's out of my domain.
Okay.
I'm not going to charge anybody with it.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Sheriff Reich? All right, thanks, Sheriff. Keep up the good work. Thank you. All right, moving on next, Central Dispatch update. Kelly.
Good afternoon. As you can see, I brought lots of friends with me today. This is actually our supervisor meeting, so we met prior. I also went over how I make my monthly report and my surcharge projections that we're going to talk about later and different things, and then they all get to come here. And as you can tell, they're very thrilled over there. Again, another busy month of training. So a few law enforcement agencies are putting together training. It's Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, other known as ALERT, and it's for law enforcement officers on how to respond to like an active shooter. And they were so nice to also include dispatch. We got a few of them there. And we, on the second day, they dispatched for some scenarios, but they also let them clear rooms. So the great thing is that if you kind of can put yourself in the officer's shoes and understand what they're doing during that incident while dispatching, it helps you have a big picture of what needs to be done and why things are happening the way they are. So they did not have real guns, don't worry, but they did get to go clear rooms and see how that all works. So that was a great training. Also, one of our projects was Nice Inform. It's actually called Nice Elite, sorry. That is a new product that we can search all of our recordings by an incident number. So that is up and running, and we had some training on that for Deputy Director DeVetter and Executive Assistant Hart, and then we are going to pass that training on to our staff and supervisors. Another thing, Telecommunicator Brown attended the National Child Passenger Safety Certification Training, and we have a few more dispatchers that are going. So one of the big things that we found at dispatch is a lot of people call and want a resource on how to put a car seat in a vehicle. So you're not necessarily putting it in there for them, but you're teaching someone how to put it in the vehicle, all the requirements and safety standards that are put into place. And we're looking to make that available during like fire open houses for the public or like National Night Out. That way we can have some staff there and educate on car seat installation. Also, Grand Ledge, it was put on by Grand Ledge Fire, but it was So it was a training. It was called 0 to 60 Career Survival and Emotional Wellness Training. So this was not only for our employees, but you could also bring your spouse or parents, children, your loved ones. And it talks about the toll that emergency services can put on your loved one that works there and how to deal with it, how to look for different signs and what you can do as a family to, communicate and make sure that your mental wellness is in check. So before I continue, I'm going to invite Supervisor Howland up. That's you, Libby. So she's just going to take a brief statement. So just a reminder, the MSU incident is almost a year, February 13th. Supervisor Howland was interviewed by the Lansing State Journal right after the incident, and they did a follow-up, and she's just going to touch base on what we're doing as a center to make sure that we're all doing good. So.
Okay, so yeah, we're almost to a year. So we did do an interview with the Lansing State Journal, and they came into our center. So just to kind of keep it fresh in everyone's mind, the mental health of all of our first responders and field responders, everyone who's involved in that day. So they just kind of talked about what we're doing in the center, what we're doing to still communicate with our police, fire, EMS, keeping everyone together. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, what they put together from the interview, and also coming to the center. So just kind of keep everybody in mind, not just us, but all of our field responders who went too. So look for that hopefully in the coming weeks.
Great, thank you very much for the update.
One second.
Oh, yeah.
All right, sorry about that. And then the dispatch floor remodel, so we're refreshing it a little bit, but that takes a lot of planning. So hopefully it will be done late this summer, and it is planning between physical plant, technology services, and then our vendor for our CAD stations. So lots of furniture, lots of technology wires that have to be moved, planned, so I will have more on that. We did have a very new public safety telecommunicator that was in the training program resign. She decided that the stress of the job wasn't for her, and we respect that. We want our employees to be happy, healthy, and if it is causing a lot of stress, then it may not be the job for you. So we do have a current hiring process for one public safety telecommunicator vacancy. Also, the Michigan State Police conducted a law enforcement information network audit on December 20th, and as of January 22nd, the audit is officially closed for Eaton County Central Dispatch, and we were found to be compliant. Let's see here. Myself, Deputy Director DeVetter, and Supervisor Holland met with Gratiot County Central Dispatch. They were intrigued about Supervisor Howland's public education manual that she created and wanted to know more about it. So we visited their center, and we also started telling them a few things of how we run our public relations team. And then Ricardo Martinez, he has a podcast that is called Within the Trenches. So fun fact, it has, I think like over 5 million subscribers and heard in over 60 different countries. He is the author of Your Worst Day is Our Everyday Imagine Listening and the founder of the hashtag IAM911 project. He visited our center, interviewed a few of our people for a podcast, so you will see that soon, and you can hear us hopefully sound great. I don't like listening myself, so I have a hard time listening to it, but we're excited about that, and we had a good time recording and taking pictures and all sorts of different things. So, and then I believe they were given my annual report. Is it in there?
Yes.
Okay. So the annual report, yes, it's like a book, which we will get it printed out to a book. I have it here. I mean, the picture's adorable, right, of Hutch. So a few things to highlight. Our calls for service for 2023 were 93,671, and our total calls answered were 131,000. So as you can see, we take emergency and non-emergency calls. We answer business lines. So not every call that comes into the center is placed into our CAD system for a call for service. However, we tried to get them to the right resources that they are looking for, whether it be that they need to make contact with their local agency or if they need a phone number. So realistically, we're also resource managers, making sure we get them in the right place. And just a few notable things about the numbers. So our total calls answered from 2022 to 2023 decreased 3.2%, but our emergency lines increased 7.7%. So that's a big difference because more of the calls that are coming into our center are serious in nature. So they're coming on 911 lines rather than business lines. So, and then also, as you can see, EMS calls decrease. That does correlate, I would say, with the lack of availability for ambulances. And then that also coincides with the fire increase, the 5.1%. So when we don't have an ambulance that would normally go to a residence. We always send the fire department as medical first responders. So just kind of explaining the number differences. And then text to 911. That took a big jump, 36%. A lot of that came into play with the August 24th storm, where we were inundated with 911 calls and non-emergency calls. And in order to get your message to us, we sent out an alert to text us if you had a non-emergency or anything that even if it was emergency, we could deal with it that way too. But you could text 911. So we did give the public the option. And then a few notable things, Tree of Life. So we had a few CPR saves. Our Lifesaver Award went to Kaylee Cavender, Cassandra Yarger, Michael Bukowski, and Richard Thacker. That was for their quick actions when I know the sheriff reported it, I think a few months ago, where the car went into the pond in front of auto owners. I always forget, I get the insurance companies mixed up. So when that call came in, we gave them instructions on how to get out of the car before, because once the car goes underwater and the pressure on the vehicle, it is very difficult to get out and you have to break out a window. So we got the female caller out of the vehicle before it became totally submerged. So we have our annual awards every April during Telecommunicator Week. I know Commissioner Barnes attended last year, so we do appreciate that. And I can pass on more information about that closer to that date. So that is all I have for my monthly report and my annual report. I will be getting my annual report printed, we call it the yearbook, and have the dispatcher sign it. But we do take it to public relation events and distribute them to different townships so that they can put them out for their residents there. Any questions?
Any questions for Kelly? Commissioner Holmes?
Have a backup under public relations event. It has a push-in ceremony for a 100-foot aerial platform. Did I miss, did you cover that, or?
I didn't verbally cover it. So it is not for our department. We were actually invited to Delta Township Fire Department for that ceremony. So they did receive a grant for a ladder truck. It did take quite a few years to come in, but there's a tradition in the fire service. So back in the day, they would push an engine or a fire apparatus in because it didn't have an engine. So they kept the tradition alive, and when they get new apparatus, they have push-in ceremonies.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kelly? Commissioner Haskell?
This reminded me that almost a year ago now, we worked on a resolution to urge the state and federal governments to recognize emergency dispatchers as first responders. And I was trying to do like a quick research on that to see if there's been any movement that you've heard of, at least on the Michigan or federal level. But has anyone reached out to you about?
So at the state level, it did not make any movement, but where we really need it is at the federal level. So the Department of Management and Budget is where they make job descriptions, and that is where we were deemed secretaries. So and I think it's reviewed every 10 years, we're getting close to that 10-year review. And as 911 professions, what we're supposed to be tasked with is making sure that our job details are all, are changed and to meet what the job actually requires, and that it shows that we aren't secretaries. So we're trying to do that as a 911 industry as a whole. Also, I am attending 911 Goes to Washington in February, and that's where we meet with different representatives to talk about federal funding for 911, and then also the initiative to recognize dispatchers as first responders. So Supervisor Helen will also be attending. She received a scholarship from Michigan NINA that's paying for all of her travel and hotel and food for the conference.
Okay. And I think if I remember right, when we wrote that resolution, we planned on having it signed and submitted or whatever. So if there's, I think if I don't want to speak for everyone here, but if there's anything that we can give you to take in hand to the representatives, I'd like to try to help out.
Absolutely. I will see what some information I can get, and I'll be in touch.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Commissioner
it.
Haskell.
Thank you.
Good point. Any other comments for Kelly or questions? All right, I guess we'll go to surcharge.
Oh, I invited all my supervisors here, and
Oh, I
I
forgot about
probably
that.
tell
Sorry about
them,
that.
no, I forgot. I'm sorry. I didn't
No,
forget.
no,
you
it's good.
guys.
I forgot.
You guys just aren't being like cheerful like you normally are. They're actually being quiet. So if you guys want to come up here real quick, just so I can introduce you. Don't all run at once. Hutch, come on. So, one of my goals is to expand on our succession planning. So obviously, they know how my reports are done and how this all works. Because fun fact, when I was a dispatcher, I didn't even know there was public safety committee meetings. So, I found out when I was the deputy director, I'm like, I'm sorry, where are we going? So, these are my supervisors. Francis, you're not gonna come up? Okay, whatever. So, let's see, I'll introduce you. This, and some of them you've already met, but this is Jessica Nunham. Hello. This is Cassandra Yarger, Hannah Hunt, and Libby Howland, Rich Thacker, and Brian Jones. And Hannah has been here the longest, 23 years, so.
Oh, nice.
And then Rich has been here 15, but, you know, he can retire before his 25 years if I allow him, I guess. So, but I just wanted to make sure they know how this whole process works and, you know, why I'm always once a month walking over here for a meeting at 4 o'clock. So they all do a great job, and they allow Francis and I to, you know, go on vacations or go home and not have to worry about the center. So we appreciate them.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Thanks, guys, for everything you guys do. It's a hard job. I used to be a first responder, so, but you guys are like the glue that keeps everything together, so keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. You too, Tuck.
Yes, and Hutch. You all know Hutch, so.
I said Tuck, Hutch. Sorry, Tuck. Sorry, Hutch.
And we got his headshot now, so it's in our annual report, as you can see, and he's just like super jolly with his little professional headshot.
That is the nicest dog headshot.
No. So when I called the lady, I was like, so we need to get a few headshots updated, and I said, so one's a dog, are you okay with that? And she's like, yeah, and she's like, can I post this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go ahead. So now the surcharge, you want me to go into it, or? Okay, so just a reminder, so this is my surcharge projections. I usually bring these around February, March, and just a reminder, so dispatch has two funding sources. One is the millage, which pays for our operations, our technology, our equipment, and then also out of that fund, it also pays for MCTs, which are the mobile computers in all the first responder vehicles that the 911 calls get sent to, and keeps track of all the call information, times, all that great stuff. But then there's the surcharge. So the surcharge was put into place in 2019, and it was for the Michigan Public Safety Communication System infrastructure and radios for all first responders in Eaton County. And with it being a surcharge, there are a lot of stipulations that go along with it that the FCC puts on it. So when a 911 center receives a surcharge, anything that we spend out of this fund has to go in direct relation to dispatching 911 calls. So we can buy radios and anything related to like radio management, radios in general, because we are dispatching those 911 calls direct to first responders over the radios. So the infrastructure, as you can see in my search projections, the debt that's highlighted, the infrastructure and user radio debt will be paid in full at fiscal year 27, 28. And I have our projections. It is projecting exactly what it needs to be, so it brings in about 1.9 million a year, but we do have 1.6 million in debt for the infrastructure that is due every year. And with that said, so what we have to do, what I have to do is bring these projections to you and take a look at them and see, we can't go higher than 175, and, but we can raise it, we can keep it the same, or we can lower it. I only need a resolution if we're changing it, but if we are keeping it the same, it just needs a motion to be passed. No, it doesn't, oh, okay.
No action.
No action
If it's
is
not
needed,
passed, You
yep.
have until May to make the actual
Yes.
change if needed, and the recommendation of the director is to not.
Correct. So I did include some potential future radio system enhancements. I'm not saying that we're getting these done, but as this radio project progresses, certain things that have come up. So when we fix radios, as I usually do the fixing inside, Francis usually does the fixing outside because he likes that. But we do it in rain, and like if their radio needs to be fixed, it's a first responder radio. It can't just wait for the weather to be nice again. So we are doing those fixes in the parking lot a lot of times, especially if it's a car radio. MCTs also can fall under the surcharge. And those, again, Technology Services manages all those for Eaton County 911. But they're doing fixing and installation all in a parking lot. Poor Brett, the other day when it was like -14 with the windshield, he was fixing a radio out in the parking lot. So we're brainstorming between Technology Service, myself, and Director Powers of like what we could do, what we could come up with. So we're kind of doing an analyze of a cost of a new pole barn, what that would look like. Also, the radios have a warranty for 10 years. And when this project came to fruition, the goal was that every 10 years we would replace the radio. So we own the radios, and those can be sold to maybe another county that could utilize them on their system. But our goal was to replace, and whether that be we replace them all at once or we set a schedule where we start replacing those, that's something that we need to look into, because right now, if a radio breaks, we send it to the vendor and they warranty it and send it back. So we currently manage about 1,000 radios. So we would be looking at replacing 1,000 radios after 10 years. Also, you've heard me talk in the past about a data channel. So we did originally budget for a data channel last fiscal year, but then I found out that Ingham County put a data channel on all of our towers. So right now, we requested a good of service report from the Michigan Public Safety Communication System. And if we can utilize that data channel, I'm sure there'll be a variety of connectivity fees that I need to implement. And what that would do is, so any of the radios that are on the first responders, we could use those as like an AVL GPS, so we could see where they're at after they leave their cars. So right now, they're MCTs in their cars. We can see where the cars are at. But when we start tracking suspects and the first responders are out of the vehicle, we don't know exactly where they're at. So they tell us, let me be clear with that. They tell us, but we can't see it on the map. And then over the few years, we have had coverage issues. I brought last fiscal year the Potterville school issue where we put BDAs to help with that signal in the school. And then also Grand Ledge has been tricky in the sense of the terrain. So all of their schools also have BDAs, but we're keeping an eye and making sure the first responders, especially in the Grand Ledge area, are communicating any dead spots. So there's a lot of unknowns still. I mean, the radio project is fairly new and we always, get surprised with something. So my recommendation would be keeping it at $1.65.
Comments on that, questions? Commissioner Haskell?
I think it's becoming clearer and clearer with the various emergency services challenges that you've faced over years, that communication is going to be more and more and more important and getting more and more complex. So I think it would be wise to keep it where it's at.
Any other comments, questions? I agree with Commissioner Haskell. And you don't need anything on that, correct? No resolution voted, okay. All right, any other questions for Kelly? Kelly, do you have anything else to share?
I mean, I can do a song and dance if you want. I'm not sure you'll be entertained, but you may pay me to stop.
Yeah, great job, you guys. Great job, appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Your staff, I always look forward to you guys, your report, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, moving on next, we have emergency management update.
Yep, good afternoon, everyone. I will be brief, just three things to touch on in terms of the last month of where we're at and where we're going. First thing, I always try and start off with just a little bit of update in terms of where we're at from the August 24th storms. I have a little bit of new information. The review is still at the federal level within FEMA in terms of our presidential disaster declaration. No change on that. A lot of rumblings, but nothing for certain that has come out. However, yesterday we did hear back from the state, and the state is actually going to hold applicant briefings starting next month using Public Act 390, Section 19 funds, which is state funding back from August 24th. So we've actually started contacting all the different townships, villages, and cities, particularly in that northeast quadrant of the county, to try and get their contact information, make sure that we're all up to date, and have them attend this applicant briefing because it's going to be very important from the financial side of things. The applicant briefings are very finance-oriented, and we had multiple township, cities, villages, and the county here as well submit multiple projects after August 24th to the tune of about $3.6 million worth of damages or personnel cost following August 24th. So we want to make sure we try and recoup as much of that as possible through whatever avenue that is possible. So if the avenue is going to be the Disaster and Emergency Contingency Fund at the state level, I'm all in, and I want to make sure all of our stakeholders are all in too and trying to recoup those costs. So right now that's scheduled for mid-March over at MSP headquarters in Dimondale, and we'll continue to see how that federal process plays out in terms of if that's still going to be on the table or not. I really have no indication. Second thing to touch on, we did have an Emergency Operations Center activation last month, about mid-month. A lot of different reports coming out about a significant amount of snowfall, winds, ice, all the things across a large swath of the state, right? So we did activate the Emergency Operations Center at our monitoring and assessment level, and that's basically all we had to do was monitoring and assessment. We established different Emergency Operations Center triggers and things. Some of those triggers include obviously like an incident within the incident that may escalate to the need for additional assistance, either outside the county, regionally, or at the state level. When you start getting into that extreme cold, snow, that kind of stuff, you really start to get concerned about long-term power outages. So we attach a trigger to that. If we start seeing long-term power outages at about 72 hours, and there is a reason for 72 hours, there is a policy through the Federal Emergency Management Agency that says individuals and businesses will be prepared for 72 hours. If we start seeing power outages longer than that, we get a little bit concerned, especially wide-scale broad power outages. Didn't really have that either. So really just didn't have the triggers that we thought we would have based off the information that we got. Still kind of a nasty storm. You had a lot of slide-offs over the course of a day or two on some of our roadways. but really didn't need to escalate to any enhanced coordination or collaborative efforts that we needed to have. Lots of different coordination calls and things beforehand, just from a readiness standpoint, but we escaped relatively unscathed, which is what we like to see, and that's fine with us. Lastly, just to kind of talk about, again, where we're at, we already started implementing a lot of different parts of our strategic plan, which was approved last month. I did bring my whole office here today too, by the way. We are very deep into planning, and by planning, I mean all sorts of things from hosting training, sending people to training, the design, development, and conduct of exercises, to actually even digging down into our documentation. We're doing so much of that right now. I kind of turn to Ella sometimes in the office and I say, hey, it's going to be a computer crunch or a keyboard crunch type of day. And that's just sometimes what it is, and that's okay. But we're doing a lot of a review, a lot of revamp, and then a lot of prep for the rest of 2024, especially focusing in on this first half right now. Looks like we're going to have a really big exercise here in the county in about April to May. It's going to take place over the course of a week over at the fairgrounds. I'll have more information on that probably next month, but that's going to be a large undertaking that we're going to coordinate with the state, MDHHS, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Bureau of Emergency Preparedness, EMS, and it's a new term, Systems of Care, BEPASOC is what they call, coordinating with them on a very large-scale exercise. So we want to make sure that we get those ducks squared away, and then probably invite you all to that to see some of those operations as it relates to MIMORT, which is the Michigan Mass Fatality Management System here in this county, or in the state, excuse me. Lots happening, but really excited about where we're at and where we're going. And certainly if there are any other questions, I'd be more than happy to take.
Questions for Ryan? Let's just hope tomorrow the groundhog sees a shadow, right? Or no, doesn't. We don't want him to see a shadow, right?
I
I think it's what it is.
can never remember.
No
either.
shadow, no shadow.
Whatever the good one is, I'll take it.
Any other questions for Ryan? All right, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Moving on to any miscellaneous items, any miscellaneous
No, sir.
items. All right, seeing none, any last minutes or limited public comment? Limited public comment. All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn until Thursday, March 7th. Thank you for all coming.